Yo, what is up everybody? Jumpin here, and today I wanted to give you my take on college and especially student loans. It is outrageous how much college costs nowadays. Sometimes you hear stories of people who are in debt for 150,000, 200,000 after attending college, and you're just like, what the fuck? Now, the average debt that people take is anywhere between 30,000 to maybe 70,000, and it just keeps going up. It really just depends on the person, what school they went to, if they decided to stay in a dorm, if they had to pay for food, things like that. I think that if you want to make college a little bit more affordable for yourself, a good idea is to go to a more local university and of course to maybe stay with your parents while you do it so you don't have to pay for room and board. Now, you might be wondering, will these people be able to pay off this debt? In some cases, I would say maybe, because if they can go to school, get out, and get a fantastic job, then yes, I do see them paying off those student loans. That's the idea. You take out the loan so that you can go to school, you succeed in school, and then you get out and you get a wonderful job. And with the money that you make, you pay off your debt. That's the general idea. But that doesn't always happen. We have an epidemic in this country of people going to school and majoring in certain things, and when they get out, they can't get a job. They can't get the job they wanted, and then they end up working in the service sector, and they're stuck. And unfortunately, they have this massive debt that they will never be able to pay off, and they will probably default. So let me go ahead and get into this now about the cost of college and why is it so high. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and get started by actually giving you guys some numbers and statistics about how much college costs right now and how much it has increased over the years. So I decided to go ahead and look up two articles. Both of these are from Bloomberg. I thought that would be a pretty good source. One is about the actual cost of college right now on average, and the other one is about how much it has increased since 1978 when they started tracking it. Now, this first article is from October 2013, so that's only 4 months old, so we can get a pretty good idea on how much college costs right now on average. And the second article is from August 2012, which is a little bit older, but I still think we can get a good idea on how much college prices have increased since 1978. So let me go ahead and I'll get started with the actual cost. I'll read directly from the article, and then I'll leave my comments until after I get done reading this. So this is what this article says. Including the cost of room and board, in-state students at public universities pay about $18,000 on average, and out-of-state $32,000. Students at private nonprofit colleges shell out almost $41,000. Continuing a trend over the past decade, the increase for tuition and fees at private colleges was about twice the 2% inflation rate for the year ended July 2013. Increases at public universities marked a departure. Over the past 10 years, the institutions had raised tuition and fees at almost 3 times the inflation rate. Alright, so you might be wondering, what does this all mean? Well, what I find most interesting about this statement, besides the cost, it's good to know the actual prices. Public universities, $18,000, out-of-state, $32,000. And private universities, $41,000. Now, $41,000, that's pretty shocking, because when you consider like the middle class average income, I'm pretty sure that's like $39,000. So this is literally higher than the actual average income of a middle class family. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty horrible. Obviously, a lot of students are going to have student loans to pay these prices. There you go. Now, I personally feel the most interesting thing that this article says is that the actual inflation rate of college tuition for private colleges is 4%, and for public universities it's 6%. I don't really know like what's the difference, why private is 4 and why public is 6, but you know, of course it brings up that the 2013 inflation was 2%, which I personally feel is bullshit. Just go to the supermarket and look at the prices, and I think you can kind of debunk a 2% increase, because it's not 2%. A lot of things go up a lot more than 2%. So I don't know how they measure this exactly. I know that they use something called the CPI. What's interesting about the CPI is that they constantly change it and they figure out new ways of measuring inflation, and every time they change the CPI, they always come up with lower inflation numbers. So that's pretty fishy. Now, one interesting thing as well is that back in the 1970s, there was a lot of inflation. Nobody will dispute that. If you were to take the CPI from the 1970s and rate the amount of inflation today, I promise you that number would be a lot higher than 2%. I could do a whole video about inflation because it's what will eventually destroy us, I personally think. But like I said, I don't want to do it right now. So yeah, that's really interesting. Now that will pretty much bring me to my second article here, which talks about the overall increase of price since 1978. Now try to remember, guys, that this article is actually from 2012, so I would personally say that this number has definitely increased since that time. It has not decreased. There's no way. Alright, so since 1978, according to Bloomberg, college tuition and fees has increased a whopping 1,120%. That is outrageous. Now they actually compare this to two other things. One is healthcare. In the same time span, which we all know healthcare, the price of that is also outrageous. But in the same time span, healthcare has increased over 600%. But when you compare that to college tuition, that would mean that college tuition has almost doubled in price compared to healthcare. They also list food here, which is 224%. So you might be wondering, what does this all mean? Well, it means that college is outrageous. The price is going up and up and up, and it will continue to go up in price as time goes on. It will not probably come down in price. But why is it so high? Well, to me, it's very obvious why it's high. It's because of the federal student loan program. That's it. Now, unfortunately, when I tell this to some people, they get upset. They say, well, wait a minute, what are you trying to say? That we shouldn't have federal student aid? Because if we don't have it, then no one could go to college, right? Yeah, that's true. And then they also say, well, wouldn't only rich people be able to go because of the price? The price is so outrageous that who could afford that if you didn't have federal student loans? Well, it's true. Yeah, only rich people could go. But you have to understand something. When the government subsidizes something, the price will always increase. Now, if you want to understand why, I'll explain it. And it's really easy to do this with college. And this goes with everything, including healthcare. I wanted to do this about college first because it's going to make explaining things like Obamacare easier. Because it's so much more obvious when I talk about college. See, what you have to understand about colleges is that they are businesses. They are in the business of educating people, and they are trying to turn a profit. So because the government has subsidized them and basically told everyone that if you want to go to college, don't worry about the price because the government will basically pay for it. Now, the government doesn't loan you the money. Private banks will loan you the money. But see, the bank doesn't care because it's guaranteed by the government. If you can't pay that debt to the bank, then the government will pay that debt for you. The college will still get its money because the bank gives the college the money for you to be able to go. So what does that mean? That means that the college can basically raise their prices as much as they want because the demand is still there. People want to go to college. They don't care what the price is because they don't actually have to come out of pocket to pay for it. So they'll still go. Now, another thing that will also drive up the price of college is the students themselves. See, there's only so many free slots in every university. And you have the better universities, and you might have just certain universities that particular student really wants to go to. And there's plenty of other students that also want to get into those universities. Now, in this case, let's say both of these students that want that one slot in that university have the loans. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to compete against each other, and they're going to artificially bid up the price because they want to get that slot. They want to go to that particular university. Combine that with the unbelievable demand there is for people to go to college, well, that's going to really drive up the price. And of course, everyone will tell you that you should go to college. Going to college is good. In fact, there's so many studies and statistics that will basically say if you do not go to college, you will make a lot less money compared to people who do go to college, and you will be a lot less successful in life compared to those people. And this is true. So that is a fact. And unfortunately, when everyone knows that, because you're constantly told that you should go to college, if you don't go to college, you're going to not be successful. So you need to go to college. When you have that combined with the ability to go to college, anyone could go. Now, certain colleges, well, there's only so many slots in each college. So you might want to go to one college, but you can't get in, you can't go because people beat you out to it. Okay, but you can always go to another college, a local college, or maybe another out-of-state college if you couldn't get into your local colleges, but you can go to college. That is a fact. And unfortunately, this is what is driving up the price. There is a high demand for people wanting to go to college and get better educated and to develop better skills so that they can get better jobs. And what will happen in a lot of cases, this comes back down to the epidemic of people going to college and not being able to find good jobs. Well, the problem is that there's not enough good jobs out there for all the people going to college and getting their degrees. Now, I hate making this statement, but I have to make it because it is so true. So be prepared because this will turn some people off. There are way too many people going to college. We need to reduce the amount of people who go. Here's your problem. There's not enough jobs for these people. So when they go to college and they basically are trying to get the same degree for the same thing, and then they get out of college, they compete to get those jobs, and there's not that many jobs available for them. So what happens? They have all this debt, they can't pay it back, and they can't get the job that they went to college to go and get. So they basically put themselves into debt for no reason. Now, eventually, will they be able to get that job? Hopefully they will. But it still is an epidemic that is going on. So you got to understand, there are plenty of people in college that do not deserve to be there. They do not. There are plenty of people right now in college that either didn't want to go and they were pressured into going by their parents, or they wanted to go, but they didn't want to go for the right reason. You should want to go to college to be better educated. That is the bottom line. If you decide, I want to go to college so that I can have fun, have a social experiment, drink, get high, party, have a good time basically, and slack off, you should not be there. The people in college right now who are sitting there, they're cramming for the test, they're studying, they decide, I don't want to go out and party, I want to learn this material. Those are the people who belong there. Now you have to understand, why do people go to college? Now I guess you could always argue with me that it's to get educated. It's for education. Yes, that's good. That's a noble cause that you want to educate yourself further. But the real reason why most people go is because they want to have a leg up on other people. See, when you have a college degree, or at least it used to be this way, and this is slowly deteriorating. It used to be that if you had a college degree, you had a clear advantage over a lot of other people who did not have that degree. Now, this is not the case as much anymore. To be honest, if you really want to have that same kind of advantage that you once had before, you have to get your master's degree or a PhD. Now, if you go out and get those, yes, you will have a clear advantage over other people. But if you only have a bachelor's degree, there's going to be plenty of other people with the same thing competing against you to get those same jobs. And you might be the unlucky one who can't get the job in that particular field. Now, I had a friend once when I was in high school, and this guy was in college. And he gave me some advice that I took to heart, and I'm glad I did because it was 100% true. He told me, if you ever see an ad on TV for a major, like let's say a medical assistant or let's say video game design, I remember that as well. That was a big ad for a long time. Do you want to make video games? Come to this college and we will teach you, video game design. He told me, if you see that ad, do not take that. Whatever you do, do not do it. Because if that ad can convince you to go to college and take that, it convinced a lot of other people. And when you get out of college, They're all going to be competing for these very limited jobs, and you will not be able to get a job more than likely. So this is a huge problem, guys. There are way too many people going to college, and unfortunately, by me saying that, I'm sure I turned some of you guys off. You take it immediately like I'm saying, let's get rid of federal student loans because only the rich should be able to go to college. Then you have no one going to college because guess what? Only the rich can go. That is not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating for is to make college affordable so that everyone could go, but they will have to pay for it and not actually be in debt when they get out. That is what I want. And I can talk about different ways that we can accomplish this. Now, I want you to think about one thing, because this is something I learned in life a while ago, and I have to be honest, when you start to look at things like this, you start to see a lot of patterns, and that is good intentions will generally backfire. It's a nice thing to say certain things, and you can really want those things to happen. But unfortunately, a lot of times they don't happen. They have the complete opposite effect of what they say. Great example of this is college. Back in 1965 when they came up with the federal student loan program, what did they say? They said everyone should be able to go to college and we want to go ahead and make college affordable. But look at it. Look at the price now. Look what they have done to make college literally unaffordable without these loans. Before that time, and I know most of you guys weren't alive, but you can look. Before that time, people could go to college. They could pay for college by working, and when they got out of college, they had no debt. The price of college was affordable before the student loans were there, because when the government subsidized something, they will drive the price up, because the colleges can basically make you pay whatever they want, and you will get the loan not thinking that this might backfire, and guess what? They make all the money. The banks make the money, you're screwed. And if you can't pay the bill, taxpayers are screwed, so that means you're double screwed and everyone else is screwed if you're a taxpayer. So it's a horrible program because of these things. One last thing I want you to think about, because this is also really important. To say everyone should go to college sounds great, but let's say everyone did go to college. Let's say every single person in America who's young goes to college and every single person graduates. What good is that degree when everyone else has it? Think about the value of the degree if everyone else had it. It would have very little value because in the end there's only going to be so many jobs and you're not going to be able to find these jobs because everyone's going to be competing for those jobs. The advantage is no longer there like it once was. So how do we fix this? How do we make college affordable? Well, it's quite simple. We have to get rid of the federal student loan program. If we got rid of that program, banks would no longer loan kids money to go to college. That would mean that nobody would be able to afford to go to college. Now, by me saying that, some people will take it as I'm saying, let's make it so only the rich can go. No, because see, what you have to understand is that colleges are businesses. They're in the business of education. They want to make money. If no one could afford to go to college, no average person, then there would be no one at college. They would have empty classrooms. They would not be able to stay in business. The demand would go down so dramatically that the colleges would have to bring the prices down on tuition. They would have to do that because no one would go. And if they brought the tuition prices down so that average people could actually go to college, and even poor people could if you really are a go-getter. If you go out and you work your way through college, or your parents could probably pay for it because the price would be so much lower, then guess what? Everyone could go still. You just maybe have to work a little bit harder, but you won't have these ridiculous prices and these mortgages of debt that we have now. They have literally made college unaffordable. Without the loans, you can't go. So what would that mean without the loans? It means that nobody could go. The prices would have to come down so that normal people could actually go. But then when you got out of college, you wouldn't have this debt. This is very important stuff. And everyone doesn't need to go to college. If those people, the slackers, who go just to party, who don't really care, who don't deserve to be there, they would probably stop going. They would graduate out of high school and get a job. They would probably live with their parents from age 18, 19, 20. Maybe they'll move out eventually. But guess what? They don't have as much problems with rent and utilities. They don't have to take full responsibility for themselves yet because they can just stay with their parents. But what do they do now? A lot of these kids, they go to college, they get these worthless degrees, they party, they slack, they don't really care, and then they get out, they can't get a good job, so they get a shitty job anyway, and then guess what? They're living with their parents because they can't afford to pay for themselves or to pay for this mortgage of a debt that they have now. This happens all the time. This is what needs to stop. Instead, guess what? Let's skip that college part. Let's just get them the jobs. Let them work on getting some job experience and moving up the job ladder. Then maybe later in life when they're 23 or 24 and they're a little bit more responsible, and they don't care about partying as much, getting drunk and getting high, and they actually want to get an education and improve their skills, maybe they will go to college. But guess what? By that point, if they've been working and they may have a decent job, maybe not the best job in the world, but they have an okay job, then they can definitely afford to go. So this is a major problem. We need to get the federal government out of college. If they are out, then that means the colleges will have to compete against one another to lower prices. They want the students because the students are the business. Without the students, they can't make money. If they try to charge the prices they are charging now, no one could afford to go. No one would go. They would have to lower prices. There would be no demand for the product. Without demand, there would be no business. They would have to lower the prices to bring the demand back, and people would be able to afford to go. This is how it used to work back in the day. Before all this happened, there was plenty of people who were go-getters. They wanted the education. They wanted the degree. They would go. They would maybe work a little bit, have their parents pay a little bit, and they would be able to afford it, get out of school, no debt, and they had a clear advantage over everyone else because not that many people went to college compared to now. Now everyone wants to go to college. Not everyone deserves to be there, and the degrees are diminished. Everyone gets out of college, they will compete for the same limited jobs. They can't get jobs, they move back in with their parents, and they have mortgages of debt. This is a big problem right now in America. You have to understand why. The reason why is because of government subsidized education.